presentation on self-determination led by Shada Riley, Jennifer Bumble, and Ben Edwards. So 2 great presentations still to go. We just have to get through me, just have to get through lunch. But hopefully we'll be able to give you a lot of new information and have an enjoyable discussion and lunch together. All right, with that, we'll get it started. So I'm here to talk about some of the KCART programs and resources that we provide as director of KCART. I have probably my most boring slide to start. I don't know why I start with this, but it's just to show that we are diverse in terms of the geographical locations where we live, where we operate and work across the region, ranging from Lawrence is where some of our research labs primarily are based, both within Lifespan Institute and the Wakarusa Research Facility over on the KU campus. We partner closely with folks at the Center for Child Health and Development over the KU Medical Center. We also have historic and current relationships with Juniper Gardens Children's Project and KCK, and then we're on the Edwards campus. And this is where our resource center is as well. So we spend significant time over here. So in other words, we're all over the place, and this is where we're located. I can give you further details as we go. My slides aren't shifting. There we are. All right, so this is a little bit more interesting slide, right? So we're diverse in terms of where we're geographically located. We also have a significant leadership team that really addresses the many different activities and programs within KCART. Doctors Kathy Ellerbeck and Linda Heisen-Powell are shown there on the top of the screen, who have been major players within KCART since its inception in 2008. Dr. Ellerbeck is an associate professor over in Pediatrics, and Linda Heisen-Powell also is an associate professor over in Pediatrics. I think many of you know each of them. Renee Jamison is going to be speaking during this panel in just a bit. Dr. Catherine Unruh is a researcher over at the Lifespan Institute within KCART, and has been critical for the development of this meeting today, but in advancing the research mission of KCART as well. And then Sean, if you don't know Sean, get to know Sean. He's over there. He does everything, okay? I think I already said that earlier today, but he really does. He makes KCART go in many ways. I'm not overselling that by any means. And he just has such a diverse range of activities that he's involved in. And he's just a strong advocate for KCART, but more importantly for the autistic community. So KCART, as I mentioned, was initiated or begun based on a private gift that was matched by KU and KU Med Center in 2008. And the mission for KCART was to develop cutting edge new research on the causes and optimal approaches for supporting autistic individuals, for disseminating evidence-based support services throughout the state, and then developing a more informed and a bigger workforce through community clinical and research training. I'm going to speak about each of these separate goals within KCART individually now. So our research mission is really to better understand the many causes of autism and related developmental disabilities, and to develop more effective and more personalized approaches for supporting individuals with autism and their families. And some of this personalized approach was emphasized within the keynote this morning. So since the beginning of KCART, investigators affiliated with the center have been relatively successful. KCART investigators have garnered greater than $26 million in direct research costs since 2008, okay? So it's a lot of money, right? And so I was just commenting to somebody a few minutes ago that I feel like half of my time is spent just asking for money, usually the NIH or different private foundations. The research that needs to be done, the research that was described by Dr. Veenster Vanderweel this morning, the research that is done by the different KCART investigators that are within this room, it does require those supports and those grants or grant dollars. And the center is intended to support investigators in securing those funding resources that we can, so that we can actually move the research and move the science and move our understanding forward. And as I'm indicating here, the investigators have been highly successful in this endeavor, and we continue to see growth along this front. I would probably ruin your lunch if I tried to walk through every study that's ongoing within KCART, but just to highlight a few areas where we're particularly invested and interested. There are multiple studies working on new behavioral strategies for supporting individuals in multiple areas of developmental function, including social communication. There are clinical trials of new medications addressing behavioral rigidity in autism, studies of functional brain development from childhood to adulthood that currently are ongoing and NIH supported, and then research in increasing self-determination in autistic adolescents. And you may hear more about that this afternoon in Shada Riley's presentation. But there's a lot of work ongoing, and frankly, there probably are more project proposals currently under review than there are projects currently happening. Okay, and that's actually a good thing because we have a lot of studies that are ongoing. We need the community to be players in this, to be part of it and helping inform where the study, where the research is going, and then to be partners in actually conducting the research. But there are many exciting proposals that are currently under review, currently out there, and we're waiting for feedback and potential supports on those endeavors. One that I'll share with you just quickly is a rather large request investment that is going through the Office of Research at the University of Kansas, and it proposes to really expand our center through new faculty hires, through new personnel hires that would support investigators at the center, some of the critical infrastructural supports for doing assessments, doing gold standard assessments and diagnoses as part of those clinical research studies, and to really build out both our research seminar series as well as our training supports for early career researchers at KU, the Med Center. So we'll cross our fingers on that one, but just a glimpse of some of the directions that we're going in terms of the center research programs. As I mentioned, I can't sort of walk through each study that is ongoing currently, but I encourage people to reach out, to contact us to learn more about studies that you may be interested in partnering with, being part of, or just learning about the ongoing research here. There is a table out here describing some of the studies that have been recently published, or the results that have been recently published. But if you contact us through these mechanisms, I promise you that we can provide you all the information that would be of interest. Oh, I'm sorry. So in addition to the research or the science that's ongoing, there is a strong emphasis within the center to further evidence-based support services for autistic individuals in the community. Our goal here is to ensure that we are building a larger workforce of individuals who are able to provide evidence-based supports and interventions. And we also, KCART has also been heavily involved in trying to ensure that families, individuals can find the resources that they're seeking, because we know that this is a difficult maze oftentimes. And this is another, I would be remiss if I did not again mention Sean in this capacity, but there is a resource center here on the Edwards campus, but also contacting our resource program and talking through Sean or other individuals within KCART around what services are available and how to access them, we see as being really a critical component of what we do at KCART. The services goals of our center don't happen without strong partnerships with other groups within the KU Med institutions, as well as within the community. In particular, the Child Health and Development Center within Division of Developmental Pediatrics over at KU Med Center is a clinical partner. And the center provides assessments, diagnosis, evaluations, as well as supports and intervention services. And they also host a research registry for individuals who are interested in participating in research can sign up to be contacted by KU investigators through that registry. And they've been a partner with KCART since day one. The Bridge Clinic is led by Dr. Linda Heisman-Powell, and many of you may know her, but really the Bridge Clinic was formed by Linda to support individuals, support families following the initial diagnosis. There's often this lag period where you get a diagnosis, then it's kind of like, well, now what? And the Bridge Clinic is aimed at providing ABA supports and services for individuals that are in that period between diagnosis and being able to get enrolled in other critical services. Girls' Night Out, I'm not going to go into too much because I imagine Renee might touch on it in her discussion later. She says yes, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But Renee has been leading what's really a unique, one-of-a-kind social group for girls and young women with autism. And this is relevant to a question we had earlier in the morning about, yeah, girls have autism too. And for a long time, the research and even the provider communities have not fully recognized or appreciated that. And so this program is really unique in that regard, focused on unique skill development and challenges faced by girls and young women with autism. The Autism Support Club is led by Sean Swindler. It's in partnership with the Johnson County Community College. I think I have the right number of C's on there. I do. To support autistic students by providing really a forum for engaging with peers in different fun activities. It's not a skills training per se, it's really a social group. And Sean has had a lot of individuals who've been part of that and really enjoyed that over the years. And then, as I mentioned, we do have an Autism Resource Center. If you want to just come over and read and learn about the resources that are here, or talk with Sean or an individual about what programs, what activities may be relevant to what you're looking for, KCART provides that, and we're here for you. The last piece of our mission that I'm going to talk about is training. And our training is rather diverse. So the training involves both training individuals, providers, caregivers in the community, as well as training scientists who are earlier in their career, developing their research careers, and really are going to have the cutting edge science moving forward and establish new knowledge that is going to move our field forward. And we saw this a few years ago, there being a critical gap here, that these early career researchers are at vulnerable points in their careers, and these supports were going to be needed to ensure that they get to where they want to go, so that they can actually really lead us moving forward. So there are a number of training programs or activities with training in mind that we head up. One is what you're part of right now. That is our Autism Across the Lifespan meeting, which we hold annually, at least we did before pandemic. But really, this is an event that is here to provide new information, to develop new relationships and new partnerships, and to increase the discourse and the dialogue between different members of this community. That is, from educators to providers to researchers to self-advocates to family members and educators, and bring all of us together under one roof. And we think that this meeting has been helpful in that regard. The Oasis provider training, again, that is led by Linda Heitzman Powell. It's kind of done jointly with her Bridge Clinic, but this Oasis training is really been intended to scale out some of the ABA principles and teachings that we know are very important for many autistic individuals in skill building and behavioral development, and to scale out some of these strategies to educators, providers, and to caregivers. I know the latest data that I saw is that Linda has trained over 1,400 autism waiver service providers, which is just phenomenal since 2008, but that data was updated as of 2016. So I don't know what that number is now, but it's a lot. And so I think it's a highly scalable intervention support system that is having a pretty significant impact. And then what I referenced just a few moments ago is the development of this early career research training program. We labeled it a postdoctoral training program, but this program, it was co-founded and is co-directed by Steve Warren and me. And it was initially targeted towards postdoctoral trainees, but it now consists of pre-doctoral students, postdoctoral trainees, as well as early career researchers who have finished their postdoc work. And the idea here is that there's a lot of professional development skills that nobody tells us about until we flounder and we flub, and then we find out that we shouldn't have done that. And this program is supposed to support researchers in identifying those areas where the professional development skills really need to be built out as they move along in the research career. And then there's research components to this as well. So we're providing a lot of guidance and feedback and information regarding outgoing projects or grant awards. I think this program has been fairly successful in that within the 4 years or so that it's existed, it has been the participants within the program have garnered 9 different significant fellowship awards. So we think it's having a difference. Now, those awards are secured largely on the excellence of the actual trainees, but we like to think that the program itself is playing a role in getting them there. So we think it's paying off. As part of this larger programmatic grant mechanism that I described earlier, the hope is that our current postdoctoral training program, or this early career research training program, will combine with some of the really important training activities that are being conducted within our University Center of Excellence for Developmental Disabilities, led by Karrie Shogren. And she was a significant part of that initial proposal. And so the hope really here is to diversify the expertise and the training trajectories of the individuals involved in this program and really build it out. And so we're hoping to do that in the coming year. So I've left some of the contact and resource information up here so that people who are interested can either take a picture of the slide or write down these contacts. But this is really just an overview of some of the activities that we do at KCAR, but it's also an open invitation for each of you to reach out to us and let us know how we can support and how we can be of help and how we can partner. So thank you for your time and listening to me. I'm going to turn it over now to Karrie Shogren, who is going to be presenting virtually. And I think while Drew gets her slides up, I'm going to just briefly introduce Karrie. Karrie is the director of the University of Kansas Center of Excellence for Developmental Disabilities. She also is a professor in special education, and is going to present now on her work within the UCED. Karrie?
Thanks, Matt, for that introduction. I'm going to assume everyone can hear me. And it's a pleasure to have the chance to talk with everyone about the Kansas University Center on Developmental Disabilities. As Matt's already highlighted, we have great collaborations across KU and in all of our activities, really advancing work that supports people with developmental disabilities and their families across the life course. And KUCDD works to be a part of that mission and a part of making change in our communities. I'd be remiss in saying that I'm going to be here today sharing with you for a few minutes over the lunch hour, and I appreciate the chance to be with you virtually. But there is a very large and impressive team that's a part of KUCDD, and everything that I'm sharing today is really based on the work that our team of researchers, dissemination experts, advocates, and partners throughout the state and the country contribute. So there are a number of people that are advancing all of the missions of KUCDD within KU, within various sites of the university, including at the Med Center and in Parsons, that really enable us to do work across the state, across the country, and across the world to impact people with developmental disabilities, including people with autism. So let me tell you a little bit about KUCDD. We are, as Matt mentioned, a University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. And what that means is that we're actually part of a large national network of centers, all of whom receive funding to really advance this mission of supporting people with developmental disabilities to achieve the lives, the outcomes, the goals, the visions that they have in inclusive communities. So we're both very fortunate as a University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities to be able to access partners and resources and learning that happens all across the country. As you see from this map, there are 67 centers across the country. There are also 43 leadership education and neurodevelopmental and related disabilities programs, LEND programs. You'll hear more about those from Renee in just a minute, including our program at the Med Center. There's also intellectual and developmental disability research centers that are situated across the country. So we're able to be a part of this national network and both share what we're learning in Kansas and in participation with all of you that are in the audience, as well as to bring what we learn from being a part of this network where we share, communicate, and really try to understand how we can make real and lasting changes in our communities through research, through training, through community services that really advance outcomes for autistic people across the lifespan. So you might be wondering, there's this national network of these USEDs, of LENS, of IDDRCs. USEDs in particular came from and are supported by the Developmental Disabilities Act. The Developmental Disabilities Act, when it was first passed, really said we need to create this national network of resources to be housed in universities, but that liaison with communities to provide leadership and really advise federal, state, and community policymakers about issues that impact the community. So you can see our charge under federal law and through the funding that we receive is to promote opportunities for individuals with developmental disabilities to exercise self-determination, to grow in their interdependence in their communities, to be productive through employment, and to really access inclusive opportunities in all aspects of their communities. And so at KUCDD, a key part of our mission is to really better understand how we can support and act as allies to advance self-determination and to advance inclusion across the life's course. And that's a key part of the various activities that we engage in and the partnerships that we have and that we attempt to develop to really work with communities to make these changes something that is community built, community sustained, and leads to the outcomes that everyone is targeting. So I want to acknowledge that we have a number of partners, our DD or Developmental Disabilities Network. And so as a USED, we closely partner with the Developmental Disabilities Council, with protection and advocacies, and we may have representatives of those organizations in the audience today. And really, we work to partner together to really advance policy and practices in ways that are accessible to community members and are making real change throughout the state. So these are some of the key goals and efforts that are undertaken by USEDs like KUCDD. Similar to what Matt mentioned, we also have core areas of focus that are part of our work. So we focus on research, that's a key area, and we do a lot and primarily applied research in communities working to really advance change for people based on community identified needs. We also focus on training, that interdisciplinary training. Matt mentioned ways that we're continuing to partner with KCART and with other institutions and groups at KU to advance that training. We also partner closely with the LEND program that Renee will talk more about to make sure that we're impacting people that are interacting with autistic people across the lifespan and people with other developmental disabilities to really ensure that understanding of the array and the range of domains that impact the lives of people with disabilities. We also have a focus on community services and really identifying the best and the most effective ways that communities can be involved in research, in supporting community change, and in advancing outcomes. So we have a range of projects that really engage communities and bring this work forward. And I'll share a little bit about some of the newer projects we have in a few minutes to give you a picture of what some of these things can look like. We also focus on information dissemination. That's one of our charges as a university center. We have information dissemination targets that both relate to journal publications and books and other activities that are a common focus of research. But also we really work to build ways that we can support information dissemination based on the needs, the preferences of the communities that we support. We focus on creating plain language materials that put research into terms and ways that are meaningful for the people that are actually going to be using and applying research in communities. We also really work to make sure that we're using new and different ways, emerging technologies, social media, and other ways to push out information about what we're learning so that this can immediately be adopted and used to impact communities in the work that they're doing. So these are the 4 core areas that KUCDD and USEDS in general focus on. Just to give you a picture of some of our impacts, these are a snapshot of just in the past year, some of the impacts that we've had. 75 conference presentations, we've trained over 12,000 individuals in some of the different areas that we focus on: self-determination, assistive technology, community inclusion. We've been involved in books and book chapters, 75 peer-reviewed journal articles. So the KUCDD team is making a lot of impacts through the work that they're doing and what we're trying to advance as a center. But these numbers don't really share the impacts. The ultimate goal is to make sure that we are doing things that are responsive to the needs of the community. We use community advisory panels and other groups to make sure that we're hearing what are the needs on the ground in communities, where does change need to be taken, so that we can use that to collectively shape and build our research agenda. We at KUCDD also have a strong focus on really moving closer to and advancing the use of participatory and inclusive research approaches, so that we're building pathways for autistic people, for people with developmental disabilities, to be involved and engaged in every phase of the research process, so that we're making sure that the needs, the visions, the values of the community, and the expertise, the lived experience, and the understanding of these issues is actually being shaped by people for whom our research, our training, our community services, and our information dissemination are meant to impact. So that's a strong focus in the work that we do and really influences the types of projects that we're doing and the issues that we're tackling. So similar to something that Matt said, as you can guess by these numbers, we have a number of different funding projects. We typically have around $10 million of funded projects operating in any given year. So I don't have time today to share about all of the projects and all of the amazing activities that people are contributing, but I will share at the end some information about our website and some other ways that you can continue to learn more. But what I wanted to do is spend a few minutes sharing with you some of our most recent projects that really have direct relevance to the autistic community, and where we're trying to really advance these ideas of self-determination and community inclusion based on what we're hearing and learning from people and stakeholders about the needs of the community. So let me first introduce just briefly, oh, I'm sorry, my slides just very quickly advanced on my screen. I'm going to go back. Technology problems. I apologize, I'm having a technology issue. I'm going to stop for just a minute and reshare my screen. It's always a joy when our technology is not working as we would like, and especially since I can't see any of you, I am even more apologetic. All right, I apologize. I am having a technical issue, but I believe you can now again see my screen. I know that it's not in full screen mode, but you should at least be able to get the main points of what I'm talking about. Like I said, I want to highlight a few projects that we have that I think are directly relevant to the focus of the Autism Across the Lifespan Conference and can provide a little bit of information about some of the impacts that we're trying to have. Also, as Matt mentioned during his remarks, everyone's very lucky that some of the leaders on some of these projects, Shada Rayleigh, Jen Bumble, and Ben Edwards are going to be doing a session this afternoon. So you can actually feel free to visit with them and learn more about these activities. But first, let me share, we have a project, Project Propel. This is actually a 5-year study funded by the Department of Education and the federal government, the Institute of Education Sciences. And we're very excited to be combining and working with autistic high school students and their teachers to really look at how is it most impactful to promote self-determination and build peer supports to really support autistic high school students to be identifying goals and things that are important to them and how they want to engage with and leverage their peers to really make some of these goals happen in school context. So during the first year of this project, and as I said, it's going on for 5 years, we worked with 11 high schools across Kansas and North Carolina, where our partners are. We're impacting students and teachers and providing professional development around self-determination and peer supports. And we're actually going to be examining what's the most effective combination for enhancing outcomes for autistic students. Is it self-determination and peer supports combined? What are the impacts of peer support and SDLMI, or self-determined learning model of instruction for students? We have some quotes here at the bottom just from this first year of implementation. So teachers really feeling like the SDLMI is having an impact in their ability to engage students and motivate them in the goal setting process, and students feeling as though they're more able to reach their goals. So we're very excited about this project and continue to work with high schools in Kansas, Missouri, and North Carolina in the coming years. We're also very fortunate to be part of 2 large national networks, both funded by the Health Resources and Services Administration, that are really targeting working across the country to impact autistic students across the life course and really enhance outcomes. The first network is called the Autism Intervention Research Network on Behavioral Health. So we're partnering here with Juniper Gardens Children's Project, another KU center, as well as a number of other universities across the country. And part of what we're doing is going into schools. So in this year, we worked with 5 high schools, 5 special education teachers, and 10 students to really support them to integrate self-determination instruction into their work, as well as to use a framework called United that brings teams together around young people to really enhance the planning and the thinking through what systems changes and partnerships are needed to really enhance outcomes. The second network that we're a part of is the Autism Intervention Research Network on Physical Health. So we're very fortunate to have these connections to both behavioral health as well as physical health. This network that's based out of UCLA, KUCD is a partner with. And one of the really exciting things about this network is that it provides small seed projects to really examine ways to support autistic young people. We're focusing on 2 projects really thinking about how to support them in that transition from school to adult life. One project is called the Saga Project, and I already mentioned Shada and Ben, who are co-leading this project, and I'm sure can share more information about it later in their session. But this is really engaging autistic youth through self-determination instruction to identify goals for what they want to be doing after school. We're also very excited. We have another project that's going to be led by Jen Bumble that's also focusing on self-determination for autistic young women, but also bringing in a picture or a piece of how do you map out those resources that are available in the community and build social connections to advance physical health. This project is actually going to be starting this summer and is going to be recruiting participants. So if it's something you're interested in, make sure to grab Jen or look for more information on our website. We're also, KUCDD is not just focused on school age activities or that transition to adulthood, but also really excited to be applying these ideas to promoting self-determination and building self-determined career design interventions that support people to set employment and career goals. So we're also engaging people in activities to really identify what they want to be doing, not just for a job, but for their career. Another one of our researchers, Evan Dean, is leading these activities and is currently recruiting participants to engage in virtual meetings to really talk through identifying goals and developing action plans for those careers. And finally, I mentioned that part of our focus is really engaging communities and engaging in these community service activities. So another project that's just getting started, My Transition, My Career, is really focusing on working in communities to build transition councils, again, to support this transition from school to adult life, as well as to establish advocate-led teams, so partnerships between youth and families and stakeholders to really create the infrastructure that's needed to lead to employment outcomes across the life course. So these projects are all engaging with communities across the state of Kansas. If people are interested in being engaged and informing these projects in various ways, there's been information on the screen on contact people, or you're welcome to reach out to me or connect with anyone else that's there from KUCDD. So hopefully, and again, this is a very brief introduction to a very small subset of the projects that we have going on at our center. And these are just the projects that are just getting off the ground so that we're really still engaging with communities. So we're hopeful that these are going to continue to tell us directions that we can go in to work towards our mission and to work towards the missions of all of the centers that are represented here at the Autism Across the Lifespan Conference, of really ensuring that we're creating opportunities and supports for self-determined and inclusive lives for autistic people across the lifespan, and really doing that in partnership with all of you that are a part of the community as supporters, as allies, and as advocates to make these outcomes happen. So finally, I have up on the screen now both our KUCDD website, our self-determination website that highlights some of our resources and some of these projects, and various ways that you can stay connected to us and learn more about these activities. So again, I appreciated the chance to join with all of you virtually, and am happy to share more information or other resources later if people have questions. So Matt, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks very much, Karrie. And I should have said in the beginning, if I didn't, that we're going to do a Q&A at the end of each of the three talks. So if you do have questions, you will have an opportunity to ask while we're here. So next up is going to be Dr. Renee Jamison, who's an associate professor in pediatrics and director of the LEND program here at KU and KU Med. Renee, I'll turn it over to you.
You guys hear me okay? Yes, all right. Thank you, Matt and Karrie. It's always great to listen to both of you talk about all the great work that is going on, and I'm excited that I've been able to be a part of that for quite some time now. As Drew is pulling up my slides, I'm going to talk to you about LEND, which stands for Leadership Education in Neurodevelopmental and Related Disabilities. And I'm going to do this. There you go. LIND is a workforce development program funded through HRSA, which is the Health Resources and Services Administration, within the Maternal and Child Health Bureau, part of HRSA. And the legislation that LIND is now connected to is part of the Autism Cares Act. And so there is an emphasis on autism, including as well as other developmental disabilities. The purpose of LIND is to improve the health and well-being of individuals who have or are at risk for autism or developmental disabilities through workforce development, training with an emphasis on interdisciplinary practice and leadership. While each LIND is unique with its own focus and expertise, they're all really focused on providing interdisciplinary training, have faculty and trainees from various disciplines and lived experience, including parents of individuals with disabilities, as well as individuals with disabilities. So when we say disciplines, we mean all those things too. Again, a theme that you're hearing that we really are trying to, connect with people who need a voice in the training and the research and the activities that go on in our community. So I'm not going to, Karrie had this slide. I thought maybe she would. I'm going to give you the updated numbers. As of now, there's 60 funded LIND programs across the state. And we're part of this national network that Karrie talked about. Also, Kansas has been, and through the history, been one of 9 places that has all 3, the USEDS and the IDRICS and the LINDs. And we are even within that group of 9, just from being at the national meetings, we're actually more integrated than a lot of places. And that's something they're really working towards. And in fact, many of us, we have shared projects across those things as well as then through KCART. So Kansas LIND has been at the forefront of maternal, child, and health for quite some time. I think this is the 56th year of funding for the program. And then, of course, at the university as well. The USEDS has a long standing here as well. So being in Kansas, we really have been a part of the work around disability for quite some time. Where LIND is, although we are housed, like the grant is through the Center for Child Health and Development in Pediatrics, we are actually across both campuses, Lawrence and Kansas City, across multiple departments. We have 22 faculty on LIND that represent 14 different disciplines and that work across all these different places. So you can see some of the examples up there, but so where LIND is kind of everywhere, including the community as well. And I'll talk about some of our projects. Oops. So you'll see some overlapping themes from what Karrie was talking about in terms of our LIND priorities, our grant objectives and program priorities, not just in Kansas, but for other LINDs as well, are around interdisciplinary training. So at the graduate level and postgraduate level from various backgrounds and disciplines, training in the community, continuing education, activities, outreach to underserved populations, autism screening and diagnosis, and dissemination, advocacy, and systems change. I too am just going to highlight a few of our current activities or programs that relate to our LIND, our primary areas of LIND. We provide interdisciplinary practice and training through a variety of different experiences in terms of types as well as lengths. So we have an example of a short-term training experience, which is, of less than, from 1 hour to 39 hours, could be medical students or residents rotating through one of our clinics as an example. Another example is we're working with family medicine right now to provide some content around autism and disability to their residents. That's one example of the short-term experiences. Medium-term examples may be practicum students from various disciplines rotating through for clinics, mentoring students on research projects, or summer projects with students and fellows. So one of the primary emphasis within LEND is to train people from various backgrounds to be leaders, to continue working in the field and be leaders in autism and developmental disabilities. And about 80% of our long-term trainees continue, 5, 10 years down the road are still working in the field. And so that's pretty good. Each year we recruit a cohort of 16 trainees plus 2, so 18 trainees or fellows, with the goal being at least 10 different disciplines represented. And they complete our long-term training program, which is at least 300 hours or more. And they're a cohort, so they're doing a lot of these training activities together. Some experiences include clinical observations or rotations. There's a course that occurs in the fall and the spring. There's community activities, advocacy, policy, and they're all part of a research and evaluation project as well. We do have an ongoing recruitment process, but it sort of follows the academic year, typically from August to May. And so if anyone is interested, though, we will, like I said, recruit people from family members, self-advocates, and then from about, I think there's 17 different options from disciplines in terms of training. So I didn't pull all of our numbers. Karrie mentioned their numbers, and we have the same reporting system that we have to enter in all of our data through. But in the past 10 years, we've trained over 1,400 trainees, either short-term, medium-term, or long-term. And I believe that, so, like I said, the 55 years was not available, but that's a long time. So if you have been or currently are a LEND trainee or LEND faculty, stand up, wave your hand, or shout out. Oh, there's one. All right, that's quite a few. Okay, so another area is outreach to underserved populations. Although some of our trips were put on hold with the pandemic, we were able to finally get back out there in Salina of this past year so that we could go out and we provide clinical services. We've worked on trainings in the community, but we'll take trips. I think this is a few years ago in Dodge City. And so providing outreach to the community is one of our goals. Related to this, we have a statewide effort to build capacity within rural and underserved areas across our state for autism screening and evaluations. So in 2008, which is kind of a number we keep hearing about KCART, and then I think Heitzman Powell and Oasis, and I'm going to say that about GNO. It must have been a busy year for all of us, but we partnered with our state technical assistance support network, TASN, and to train autism diagnostic teams across the state. We currently have about 34 autism diagnostic teams. You can see the red on the, this is a map, and the red areas are showing the counties in which there is an autism team trained and available. And the partnership, they do the screening and some of the assessments, collect data in their local communities. So they're reducing the burden of travel for families, and then they share that information back to us. And then we see families over telehealth. And oftentimes the team, or whether it was the team that did the assessment or the team that the child is already working with, is there and can be a nice connection with the family. So then we can do that work over telehealth and really build capacity in understanding, identifying red flags for autism, but then also building capacity so that we can see more families, because our diagnostic center is a long ways away for a lot of families in Kansas. Telehealth has been a primary focus of Kansas for a long time due to our geographic makeup. And so a project such as this, as well as some of our other training programs that were already going on, really did well position us for when everything was shutting down in the pandemic, so that we were able to leverage these models and relationships that we already had to continue providing services. So technical assistance and community training education, again, part of one of our main missions. Anybody been to the family education series that Stephanie Coleman? There's some hands up there. Well, oh yeah, there's more. This is Stephanie Coleman started this a few years ago, and about 9 to 10 sessions each year. And so it's information that families, providers can attend for free. And it started out here at the Edwards campus and on Facebook Live. But since the pandemic, now it's all live, and now it's all remote, either in Facebook Live or Zoom. And then we archive those on a YouTube channel that we have so that people are able to go back and get that information. Some example topics have included positive behavioral supports, transition, employment. And so these have been an opportunity to build capacity and services across our state as well. We have a statewide initiative to build capacity of childcare providers. So we partner with Title V to provide continuing education credits for childcare providers across the state of Kansas. This topics for we do this through webinars, about 11 or 12 a year, with our goals to be at 24 a year by the end of the 5th year of our grant. Example topics include screening for autism, language development, positive behavioral supports, toileting, and trauma-informed care. This year we've had 9 webinars so far with 1,800 attendees across the state. And so this is a heat map. So the darker the red color means more people were watching from that area. So this is just within what we like the fiscal year 22 so far. And since beginning this 2 years ago, we've had 19 webinars with 4,270 some attendees, and we get really great feedback from these childcare providers saying that they appreciate, and it's information that they really need. And so we're piloting a program for providers to complete like a set of training series and to have a DD certificate so that they could share to families, hey, we have some training around this concept. So when we think about building capacity in the workforce development, we really are thinking beyond just people who are going into the profession of autism or developmental disability. We are trying to think about how can we build the capacity to be more inclusive for everyone. And that means we hear from families all the time about childcare and it being an issue or getting kicked out from childcare. And so hopefully we can help those providers feel more capable and comforted with families too. So dissemination, systems change, policy and advocacy, I'm really struggling with that today apparently, is a focus for us as well. LIND is supposed to be, we say sprinkle something above and beyond what someone in their discipline for those long-term trainees are going to get. And I know for myself as a psychologist, I didn't talk a lot about policies that go behind, whether or not someone's going to pay for a service and how to implement that change. We have several people within all of these university programs that were really vocal in getting our own Kansas legislation changed to pay for our autism services. And so part of our long-term LIND trainees and then all faculty are participating in these activities. Every year, the map that you saw, the national network, every year we go to a conference, an annual meeting in Washington, DC, and with all those other university partners. And one of the activities that we do is to make Hill visits, taking trainees and faculty to talk to our representatives about what's important. And so I think this is an example of one of those kind of added things that we're really talking to our trainees about that they're not getting just in their programs. So an emphasis that we had on what we do is around mental health. So coexisting mental health and developmental disabilities, coexisting mental health and autism. And so a statewide initiative that we began in early 2021 is around training people in an evidence-based program called Parent-Child Interaction Therapy, or PCIT, which is evidence-based for decreasing disruptive behaviors, challenging behaviors in kids with mental health problems, including coexisting developmental delays and autism. And you can see here on this map, the blue dots are places where prior to our initiative, there were trained providers in PCIT. And then the black dots are since we've started. So prior to 2021, there were 9, and now there are already 25, exceeding where we thought we'd be by now. And we are working towards this across the next few years. And I should have mentioned that at the beginning. Our program, the funding is on a 5-year cycle. So I mentioned this is about the 56th year, I think, that we've been funded, with the most recent renewal in 2021. And so we have about 4 more years left in the grant. And this is a $623,000 a year grant. And so, you know, 3.1 million over across those 5 years. And so we're really just trying to think about ways that we can build capacity so that we can, you know, increase our efforts on new goals and objectives as well. But so the mental health has been a primary focus for us. Matt mentioned GNO, and I said, yes, I would be, you know, talking about GNO. In 2008, again, that busy year, I started a program called For Girls. And one of the things we heard, you know, questions about gender differences, and that there were a lot more programs out there focused on males rather than girls. And this morning in the keynote noted how it's kind of secular in that the tools are developed to focus on males or from that diagnostic criteria and so on. But what's unique about GNO is it's designed specifically for girls and young women, and with autism and other developmental disabilities. It's social skills and self-care, with the intent being to enhance social emotional health, confidence, competence, and be in creating opportunities for success within authentic settings. So we're not at KUMed. You will find us out in the community all over the place, because and we're using evidence-based strategies to teach and promote and practice and reinforce those skills within the settings that they occur. It's peer mediated, meaning that we have girls without disabilities as well that we give some tips and strategies to, so that they can help create those successful experiences. And one of the other things that we do is we form community partners. So oftentimes if we're working on, like, there's a community partner in our room right now, Jesse, who's also was a Lynn trainee and is now, you know, working with Dr. Shogren. Jesse, you can wave, or there she is. And she, you know, they have a gym, her and her husband. And so our girls are working with people, and we're building in social activities, but then we're giving our community partners training on how to be helpful and effective. And so we think that is another way to build capacity, because we see these partners then all over the area feel more confident and competent, and you know, not just when our group leads. Also, it's important that it's fun and there's buy-in. You know, I've been doing this for a long time. It's a small sliver of my job, but it's really probably one of the things that I enjoy the most, and feel really passionate about. So some outcomes just to share with you after GNO, like, so our GNO program has skills groups, which are a 12-week program on our manualized curriculum for teens. And then we have community events, meaning ongoing opportunities for social interactions, either before you're waiting for a skills group or after. And then we have, we also have like parents' night out and some other related activities. But before girls report fewer internalizing symptoms or anxiety and depression after finishing our skills groups, increased confidence, feeling confident. You can see some of the quotes I have up there. I didn't hear about GNO. I would say it was impossible to find groups for girls. One of my favorites is not up there, is from a participant, says, these girls' nights are just keep getting better and better. So to date, since 2008, we've had 330 participants, about 160 who identify as autistic individuals. And we've had 89 partnerships with community members and over 300 or 400 individuals within those different partnerships, and 68 interdisciplinary facilitators. So many of those are Lynn trainees. And we're trying to disseminate our model by, we now have certified provider training where we are trying to train people to then go do GNO in their area. Again, because the idea is we want as many girls and young women to be able to participate in this as possible, but it's different than what goes on at a medical center. And so, you know, one of the things we struggle with is funding. And so since we're not billing certain, you know, for that, it's out of pocket. It kind of limits participation some, and then it does take funds to put these things together. They're more than just, you know, social gatherings out there, but we're just really strategic about what we do, and it does take some time and personnel to do that. So we are hoping though to increase that number over time. I was just going to say to close that, so I've been I'm grateful to be part of LEND, these university center programs for at least 18 years now, both as a train. I was a LEND trainee in my fellowship, and the best part of my job, I think, is working alongside other people who think differently than me, have different training experiences, lived experiences, and I look forward to many more years of learning from and alongside faculty and trainees and community members as well. And much like Karrie said, you know, I'm one small part of a huge leadership team who helps LEND activities continue, and as well as those LEND trainees that come through. Their participation around projects, developing resources, connecting with people is, you know, makes a significant impact as well. So I am going to turn it back over to Beth.
So we're going to open it up for questions to all three of the speakers and Sean. And Catherine is going to help us navigate this, and especially to translate questions to Dr. Shogren, who's out in the ether. There she
Okay,
is.
am I double mic'd or I'll just?
No, that one's not on.
Okay, super. Yeah, so maybe state your question, who your question is directed toward, or that is directed toward the whole group. And who wants to go first?
I was saying I meant to take off my mask when I was talking, and so I hope
I'll try to signal.
One
no
more
one
thing to
yelled out.
coordinate.
no
Yeah.
one yelled out that.
It's fine if we answered all the questions. We'll just hang out. Yeah. There.
Yep.
Christine.
Yeah.
Give Catherine
Yeah.
a chance to.
Oh, sorry.
So the question was whether there's a specific curriculum that is followed for Girls Night Out.
Yes, and if I had more time, I would have told you so much more about GNO. But so yes, we have for our GNO teen skills groups, Dr. Shuttler and Beckla over there, we have a manualized 11, 12-week program that goes for 2 hours once a week across those 12 weeks. And so yes, we have that packaged. And then for the community events and other things that we do, we just use some of those core concepts to teach and practice within those things.
Yeah. So the first question is related to what services are we able to provide to kind of connect people with transition related services? Is that accurate? Right. Yeah. I don't think we talked a lot about that. I imagine Karrie and Sean may have some things to comment on there. Then we can get to your second question after this one.
So Karrie, she's asking about the complexity of transition for families. So I'll mention Karrie talked about KUCDD has a My Transition, My Career, which is a brand new grant from the Administration on Community Living. And we're actually going out, and Jen and Shada, who are here, will be talking at 1 o'clock about another project, are working on starting transition councils around the state, which is a best practice. And we're also building community teams. And the real purpose of that is to educate our self-advocates and our families and our entire set of community partners on improving transition. The other elephant in the room with transition in Kansas is our 10-year waiting list. So if somebody's eligible for HCBS services, there's a 10 or longer year waiting list for folks. And so there's no smooth handoff anymore between school and service provision. And so we have to do other things. So you heard about the SDCDM study, which you can see flyers out on the table there to help people build career and transition goals, so that when they go to VR or some of those other providers, they're ready to engage them and really build the career they're looking for. But I'll have Karrie answer that about efforts around transition.
Well, Sean, you already provided a great answer, so I don't need to jump in. I'll just acknowledge that we all know that transition is complex, especially that transition from school to adult life. And so it really is building and collaborating with communities to address those local needs and build on community resources. And so the projects Sean mentioned are meant to address some of those issues, and we're always looking for new collaborators. So we'll look forward to hearing more from people that are interested in building some of those community supports and partnering with us to really research and evaluate what we can do to advance those best practices in larger and larger ways to impact more people.
And I will mention again, on the tables outside, you have information about those projects. And so you could get those and contact us if you're interested in participating or partnering on those.
Great. And then I think the second question was sort of surrounding, there seems to be a lot of excitement and interest in developing programs to serve individuals, but there are a lot of barriers. And I think a big barrier identified was funding. I know, Renee, you talked about your funding has been a challenge with GNO. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about if there are resources that helped you overcome some of those bureaucratic barriers, and if you have specific mechanisms for funding that have been helpful.
Sure. And then I'll let Matt say something.
No.
I was going to say that even because I also heard part of your question was around, the kind of the structure is gone, and then people are out of high school, and what are you going to do? Because that was the social, at least provided some sort of social interaction and connection with people, and that's been, I see that a lot with all of our girls, and so even just trying to, going out in the community to those places brings. So people can get comfortable. And so we've tried to go to places where people then could continue on for activities there. But around the funding piece and getting past, maybe the barriers, I think that as far as funding with school districts, I know that there's an endowment or foundation is what they're called, fund, where you can apply for funds. And I don't always think that people know about that. And then thinking about if, having that sort of social or leisure activities to go out in the community. I know some places have that already, but if not through a class. I'm a school psychologist by training, so GNO, I'm at the med center, we're doing it out in the community, but ideally we'd be taking that concept in the school. So then when we would go to school events or activities, and so you could feel connected. Also thought about if where people are going for college, so we talk about doing some things with people who are going to JCCC from various places, in our group, so then they'll be connected, or doing activities on that campus so that they'll be connected. I don't know if that's helpful in terms of the bureaucracy part, but I think that advocating for what the individual wants and getting people excited about taking that on. Then you can use, I've had people pay for GNO, like for some of their waiver money too. So just being creative about that too.
I didn't have anything more to add other than to say, yeah, it stinks. I agree. Bureaucracy is annoying. It slows us all down, and I think we all, face these challenges, and they vary by state and community. I think you said I think I heard you ask a question earlier from Salina, but just varies depending on where you are. But
And also note, you heard about the public policy work that's done, both LEND, going to DC, helping early career professionals learn about advocacy, but also the USAID's mission, KUCD's mission to do public policy analysis and to partner in our state on that issue. There is public policy advocacy that happens through LEND and USAID and KCART, where we really do try to stay on top of that and provide our expertise to help shape policies so that it is better. This just last couple of years, the state of Kansas had a 6-month-long multi-meeting work group on autism policy to see if we can't get both early intervention and other services better aligned for people with autism in the state. So we work on those issues all the time, and that's why we want to engage you and hear from you all as well about what's happening.
And I was just going to add too, you just heard about programs that we have similar missions, and we're collaborating, and we're all looking for partners in the community. And so getting, whether you're part of a school or as a family member or whatever, to contact, these types of programs, or even if you're in a different state, we say, contact your USAID or your LEND or whoever, and ask them, well, what's going on? How can we partner together? And so we were in Salina for outreach, and through the ADT, and also we provided training, and so we're always looking for, we as in all of us, I think are, it makes it easier on us if partners are coming to us, and then we hear what your needs are, and we try in various ways to find that out. But just contacting, I think is one.
Great. I think maybe time for one more question. Yep. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that's a partnership we've had for almost 10 years. And actually, I think Ben Edwards is here. Ben Edwards actually started that group. He actually came to KU about 10 years ago and said, I'm really interested in having an autism club at Johnson County Community College. That is a place for people, for autistics, can meet and come together and be social. And he reached out to us, and we started that group, and it's been ongoing. It's a partnership with Access Services at JCCC. And so they actively advertise that to members of the community. We advertise that, and we have 15 to 20 students and peer supports from Johnson County Community College students, and we get together and do different activities on campus and off campus. We can't go off campus until next semester because of COVID, and we met virtually during COVID, and we were really happy that a large number of the membership continued, and we continue to meet virtually during COVID. But it's just an opportunity, and the really important part of that group is that when people come, there's no expectations. It's not a training. It is a place where people can come and be themselves and hang out and do what other college students do. And we've seen some huge outcomes for the folks that have participated for 2 or 3 years, just in terms of that having that place as a touch point when they're going to school. And we have people come back who've left JCCC and come back to the club later to just a touch point. So if you're interested in that, please contact me, and very happy to talk to you more about it. And Ben did an amazing job getting that group started and established at JCCC when he was a student there.
I think we have our next set of sessions starting in about 10 minutes. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah, don't forget.